Hey guys, we just finished filming a podcast with Jordan Harbertson, co-founder of Mountain Ops. It was an incredible session full of gold nuggets and all about how to build culture, how to build companies, scaling businesses.
And like I said, I've never gone to college. I went to YouTube University, like most people. So I just dived right in and started learning and getting my feet wet. And I started building funds of funds, and we invested in gas and oil and some real estate, and we did some venture investing. And I learned very quickly how disenfranchised I was being a fund manager in terms of managing the expectations of other investors that were super successful.
Huge amount of value in there. So I'm off to the airport to head to Colorado, but make sure you check it out and let us know what you think. Well, Jordan, it's good to see you, man. It's been a while.
It's
How
been a
have you
minute. I've been good, man. How about you?
Dude, busy. We've got a lot going on, and yeah, we closed an acquisition recently. We got 3 more that we're trying to close before Christmas. So it's just we're building out the team. We've just opened office in Hong Kong. We've got one in Boulder, Colorado, launching Q1 next year. It's just there's so many moving parts to our world. It's insane, but in a good way. So, how about you?
Oh, same over here, man. We're full sell. Finally, you and I caught up in Salt Lake City when you were here. Was that during the outdoor retailer show that you were here?
Yeah.
Yes. So when you were here in OR, and was it Sean Holiday that connected you and I together?
Yes. Yeah.
Dude,
He's
Holiday,
a legend.
he's a legend, dude. He's the master connector. Like that guy is so good at putting pieces together and the right pieces, because there's people out there that'll make a connection and they're like, oh, I think you guys should know each other. And you're like, man, that just didn't connect. Didn't feel like there was anything there. But he seems to have such a good read on like how to get the right people talking. And especially with like what you guys are doing at Killara and the success you guys are already having with scaling the outdoors and all the acquisitions you guys are making, the brands that you guys are even looking at purchasing, the success that you've had in your career that's now parlayed into this venture that you're now doing. It was fun that we both come from very similar like backgrounds, mindset, mentality. So I thought that was awesome for him to connect us.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And what he's doing like with the spaceship stuff, the whole content play, the influencer programs he's doing, and they just won the world championship for Halo.
Yeah, I know.
And so what he's doing in the esports space is pretty cool. But man, look, I want to talk to you about your background. It's fascinating. Your story of how kind of you got to where you are today is really interesting. And so I guess if we wind back the clock, I would love to give our audience an idea of kind of who is Jordan and then kind of dive into leading up to starting Mountain Ops.
For sure. Yeah. Dude, I will start all the way back when I was 8 years old. And it was the first time in my life. My dad, I was born into an entrepreneurial family. And as a Harbertson, I'm like a 3rd or 4th generation entrepreneur. So it's like in our bloodline. And so as a young kid, I used a lot of basketball, baseball, football cards. And my dad actually, he owned a nuts and bolts manufacturing facility that him and his brother ran for about 32 years. Had a lot of success, one of the biggest ones out here in the Rocky Mountain West. And he also had a love for cards. And so he owned a card shop. And so me and my dad used to open up these pack of cards. And, I was always chasing Michael Jordans or Steve Youngs or, different guys. I mean, back in the day, I was chasing like Nolan Ryan, in baseball. And I would get this table, and I still actually have the original table. My mom still has it at her house. And I would take this little, rickety table out to the corner, and I'd compete against the girls up the street that were selling lemonade. And I took packs of cards, and I put them in brown paper lunch sacks, and I wrapped them and taped them, and then I wrote $1 on them. And I'd take all of my cards that were duplicates that I had like opened or earned, from different chores and stuff I'd done around the house. And I would sell them on the street corner, and I would get out there about the time when guys were coming home from work. And dude, they would stop in and they'd be like, dude, Jordan, yeah, I want to buy some packs. And, I'd have on my poster board on the front, I'd photocopied some of the pictures of like the Michael Jordan cards that you might get, or the Steve Youngs, or the Nolan Ryans, or like all these different players, right? Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. And dude, it was awesome. And then, I figured, hey, I'm slinging cards and I'm doing just fine. I'll just add lemonade too. So now you can get a drink and you can have some cards on your way to go. And it was just as a kid, it was my first experience of learning like the hustle and understanding
Yeah.
the simplicity of a buy low or sell high, right? Like even selling these packs for $1 taught me at a young age such a principle that my dad taught me very early on that carried me throughout my little entrepreneurial career that started when I was 8 years old. And so fast forward to, high school, I got into a mentorship at a marketing firm. And so I started out as a photographer and then transitioned into a graphic designer and learned how to be a successful graphic designer and become very, very equipped in that craft. And then I transitioned into a marketing director. And I started, instead of designing graphics and collateral for the brands that our firm was working for, I started managing some of the clients and some of the businesses. And we were, if back then we were Easton, the Easton family. They actually had at that time Easton Sports, and they had their Easton Hunting divisions. It was at the point where they had just sold Easton Sports to Bell, and Bell had purchased that from the Easton family, and they kept all the hunting Easton brands. And so we were doing stuff for Muzzy Broadheads, which was owned by Easton, Mackenzie Targets. They had both their target and hunting division, and they had their beam and arrow line, which is a line that they had purchased from a French company who was the first carbon arrow company in the world that actually was stealing market share from Easton's XX75 aluminum arrow,
Gotcha.
empire that they had built. And so at a very young age, I got into marketing and I started to learn it. And eventually, after I had spent so many years there, I just got the itch to want to do it myself. And I had an incredible mentor. His name was Rob Corsetti. I was his apprentice. He was the master Jedi. And I learned everything from a guy who learned about like marketing when you used to print your ads literally on paper and you'd cut and paste your paragraphs and your photo and your
Yeah.
title and you would send it in to the magazine. So I always called him a dinosaur, but I learned from somebody who at the earliest stages of marketing and had a very successful career in it, imparted a lot of his knowledge to me. And so I took that with my brother, Casey, and I convinced my brother, Casey, who was working for my dad in nuts and bolts here in Utah, to leave the family business empire and come start a marketing company with me. And it wasn't easy convincing, to be completely honest with you, because my brother was like, bro, like, why would I leave something that's so secure, so successful, and I have a chance to like take it over? And you're telling me we're going to start. Who's our clients? Like what? Like how much money can we make? And so he created this pros and cons list. I'll never forget it. Like on a typical yellow pad of paper, pros and cons. Pros to starting a business with my brother. Pros to working for my dad and eventually taking it over. And honestly, everything on my dad's side was like just so long. Like he's like, dude, there's just so many pros. And he's like, and then there's a few pros here, but not. There's more cons. There's more risk. And interesting enough, like I was moonlighting on the side outside of the marketing company that I was working for, doing stuff for brands like Skull Candy, Browning. I was working for Realtree and doing a lot of stuff for Bone Collector and those guys. And so I had my own little clientele that I had kind of done on the side outside of, Easton and Hoyt and some of these bigger brands that we were working on the other side. And my brother and I, interestingly enough, as he was kind of in this debate of whether to start this or not with me, I went and with him pitched a local home building company. And this is in 2008, which is the crash, right? So we have the crash of 2008. So in 2009, my brother and I walk into this company called Castle Creek Homes. and we pitch these guys on how we're going to help them sell their product direct to consumer. You know, we're going to help you with your social media. We're going to rebrand you. We're going to build your collateral, online and digital collateral, and we're going to help you just go directly to the consumers and customers that you want to sell your homes to. And I still remember, his name's Mike Schultz. He's actually the Speaker of the House here in Utah right now. This is, 13, almost 14 years ago. He looks at me and Casey after we pitch, and I'm telling you, Chris, right now we pitched a game like Nolan and Ryan, like nobody else.
Yeah.
And half the things that we pitched, we didn't even know how to do.
Yeah.
Like we just had this awesome presentation. We were passionate guys. We were competing against all these other marketing companies and firms, and we won the bid. And so I look at my brother and I'm like, dude, we just won this bid. Like, I got to quit my job and I got to go do this full time now. And I look at him and I'm like, what are you going to do? And he like looks at his yellow pad and list. And he's like, dude, I don't know. And, I said to him, because he had shared, my dad had shared the business with his brother, and we had our cousins. And I said, listen, two things that are against you right now, against your list. Dad has a requirement that you have to go to college in order to take over the business. And you and I both never went to college and are never doing college. So I don't know how you're going to get past that hurdle. Second is, like, you're going to own the business with one of our cousins, and you don't know what it's like to be in business with our cousins. Not saying that they're not going to business or that could be good, but you don't know what that's going to be like. But you know what a business like being in business with me could be like.
Yeah.
And so that was actually what clicked for him. And so we started our marketing firm. And unfortunate for my prior mentor, all of his clients eventually became mine, because my brother and I started building out an entire full stack team that we end to end focused at that time. This is 2009, 2010, right at the beginnings of the golden era of direct to consumer, digital commerce. And we started learning it and earning it and going out and figuring all this out. And so we started to acquire a lot of customers in the outdoor space quickly, because we had a deep passion for that. We were both raised in the outdoors by dad, hunted most of our lives. And so we started doing work for brands like Vortex Optics and for First Light with Scott and Kenton back then, when they were when they had ASET and Realtree as their patterns, right before they actually created Fusion. And we eventually started doing all the work for Easton. And, it became this really cool opportunity where we, at that time, became the leader of marketing for the outdoors. And we couldn't keep clients away from our business in terms of knocking on our door and trying to have us do their business. But Chris, this is a point in my life and career that was so exciting. I had always wanted to do my own business, work for myself. I had that within me. It was within my blood, like I'd shared before. And as my brother and I were doing it, we were having so much fun as we were learning, earning, experiencing, and having so much success with all these brands that we were helping them to transition from a wholesale channel only mindset with retail to now a direct to consumer. You can actually sell direct to your consumers, and helping them bridge that, those channels so that they could turn their brands now into a more omni-channel brand. And it was interesting because here I am at, let's say I remember at this point I was 4 years in. This is 2013, and I'm beyond stoked, but inside of me, I'm just not fulfilled. And what I started to identify and recognize as to why I wasn't fulfilled, here I am working for brands like, we had Benelli, we had H&K, we had Realtree's business, we had Easton's business, we were doing stuff for Hoyt, we had Browning. I mean, some of the biggest brands and names in the outdoors, we were doing a lot of their work for, and especially like Vortex and First Light, some of these others that we helped them literally set up their social media pages for them and help them early on get set up on social media and started creating campaigns and things that could help them grow their audiences and become more in control of their destiny rather than just, relying on retail to do that for them. So here I am, and I'm sitting there and I'm not fulfilled. And Chris, what came to me in that time that I became so unfulfilled with was the fact that I was really obsessed with time and I'm
Mm.
not really obsessed with money at all. In fact, I don't care about money at all. I understand and have a really good relationship with money because I understand the correlation and the importance of money and time and how they're correlated and how they're inseparable in many ways. Um, and how more money can give you or buy you more time, right? And give you more freedom. And so being in the service contract business, I realized that anytime a client needed me, anytime I needed to do work, I had to stop what I was doing, spend time away from my family, put hours on a computer at a desk
Hmm.
and do a good job. And so I looked at my brother and I was like, dude, this isn't it. I don't feel like this is the dream that I've been envisioning my whole life of what I wanted to do. I feel like I'm on the path, but I think I need to take, a turn and we need to go a different direction. And so we started talking deeply about, look, this is the cycle that we're in. And I remember, Chris, you and I talked about
Mm.
this.
Yeah.
As marketing companies and agencies, this is what I hated about the agency work. We would both, you and I, we'd help these companies grow and we'd help them blow up, and then they would fire us and they'd hire an
Yeah.
internal team and they do the right thing, save
Yeah.
money and cost and maybe have more control internally on a day-to-day basis than working with an agency. And so this cycle repeated itself time and time again to where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so what was born out of that was this idea to create something for ourselves, a product company, and
Mm.
this concept we had never understood, which was like how you could like make money when you're sleeping and things just continue to sell 24 hours a day instead of I can only bill someone for my time based on when I work and how much time I work on their projects. And so this is the moment when we kind of came up with the idea to create an outdoor company. And at this time, there was a mutual friend of ours named Peter Miller. And Peter Miller had been with me back at Corsetti, where I had been at that marketing firm. And he was working for a promotional company for all these brands to do their shirts, t-shirts, knickknacks, and patty wax, you name it, like a true promotional company, embroidery, everything, the works. And he came to us and said, I've got this neighbor, and this neighbor needs some work. And we're like, man, we don't really want to take on more work. We're actually trying to figure out how to start a different business. This is us in our heads, but we're like, yeah, we'll meet
Mm.
with him. So we met with this individual, and he had a nutrition business. And at the time that we met him, it wasn't doing very well. And he didn't know anything about marketing. And he just had found a chemist and built a good product, a really successful product, out of a necessity to help his father, who had a heart condition. And so he built a neuropathy relief, which helped with circulation, blood flow, and oxygenation for the body, which obviously aids with a lot of people with different, disabilities within circulation that can come from diabetics or people with like heart conditions. And so he's like, listen, I'm selling B2B and I don't know how to expand this, how to grow this. My brother and I looked at him and said, listen, we have a playbook we've written. We're going to run our plays. This is how we work with all our clients. We're going to tell you how much it's going to cost. We're going to tell you to get out of our way. We're going to tell you what the ROI is going to be, and we're going to go and we're going to deliver. We're just going to let our actions speak louder than our words. And he's like, every marketing company I met with usually says it's going to take 6 months to get a responsible. I'm like, no, we can get you direct response results within a week. Like, just
Hmm.
here's what we need. So he agreed to it. Within 1 month, we doubled his sales that the entire prior year that he had had. And in 2 months, we doubled the entire business that he had had in the last two. And so within 3 months time, we had generated more revenue and had more success direct to consumer online than he had had in I think it was like 3 or 4 years of
Wow.
building this thing B2B. And so he obviously came to Casey and I super just like he was super grateful. And he was like, I'm so shocked. Like most marketing guys I work with, they just don't, I'm always turn and burn. They're promising me the
Hmm.
world. They never deliver it. I fire them. I find somebody else. Rinse and repeat. You guys literally on day one promised it. And then like on day 30, you delivered it. So he literally asked us the question, hey, I have the ability to make product. I know how to do this. You guys obviously know how to do all this other stuff. I don't have any clue how to do. How could we come together and do something maybe together? And my brother gets the credit when he sat there in that meeting, looked at him straight in the face and was like, dude, let's build an outdoor nutrition company for hunters and fishermen. Um, and this is the crazy part. This is actually a fun story. A year before this conversation that we're having with our future partner, um, we met with a company called Wilderness Athlete, who Wilderness Athlete at the time is and gets credit as creating the category in outdoor for nutrition and health and wellness. Mark was the one that founded that. Chris, who owns Western Hunter magazine and show, and what's the name of his accessory company? It's been super. Chris has been super successful in the outdoors with his brands. Outdoorsman. Outdoorsman was his brand that he started, and the magazine and the TV show was Western Hunter. Anyways, he ended up acquiring Wilderness Athlete from Mark when it went into bankruptcy. And Casey and I, a year before we meet with our future partner, met face to face with Chris, offered him this playbook and an opportunity for us to like literally do for Wilderness Athlete what eventually became Mountain Ops, and he turned us down. Wow. And, you know, Chris looked at us straight in the face and said, I don't need you guys. I don't even know who you are. Like, yeah, it sounds like you've done some great stuff. I have a magazine, I have a TV show, I have all these things. And this is no dig at Chris. This is just every right. He's like, who are the Harbertson brothers? Like, I understand you guys do all this work for all these people, had some success, but like, I'm good, is basically what he kind of said. Hence, a year later, Mountain Ops is born. And so what was really, this is in 2014, early, because in 2013, we had just proven to our business partner that we were capable of what we said we were capable of doing. And we started ideating and creating and building the brand, the business plan. And so Casey and I really, when we started thinking about Mountain Ops and what we wanted to do, it came down to, I was so enamored and in love with two things at that time. And Chris, tell me if you love these things too. I love Mountain Dew. Mm-hmm. Do you love Mountain Dew?
Look, I can't say I do. I can't say I do. No, it's
you don't do the dew?
Well, I can't. It's just you look at it and it just looks like straight rocket fuel. And so I look at it, I'm like, that can't be good for you.
Yeah, it's like, you know, and the fact remains the same. It is not good for you. There is nothing healthy about a Mountain Dew. In fact, rocket fuel in twofold would say, oh yeah, it helps give you like to the moon, or yeah, it's literally fuel from like maybe Elon's SpaceX, Tesla, you know, whatever, you know, stuff. But I was so inspired as a kid with the brand Mountain Dew, and I drank the Kool-Aid, right? I drank Mountain Dew, and I love that name, and I love that brand. I love what it stood for because I was into action sports growing 100%. Up, snowboarding, skateboarding, all that.
They were like the Red Bull before Red Bull.
They literally were.
Yeah, like what they did in terms of like engagement into extreme sports and sponsoring all these athletes when X Games was like kind of the biggest thing. Yeah, man, I remember them kind of coming up because I mean, I came from the skateboarding industry.
Yes, so both of us were both you and I, being in skateboarding, being in snowboarding, being in that, you know, industry and in that space, like Mountain Dew was king then, right? Yeah. And then you had Red Bull, and so the two things that inspired me to do Mountain Ops was Mountain Dew and Red Bull. And so when I came up with the name for the company, I loved the 6 letters that Mountain Dew had created with Mountain Dew, and the fact that it was either the dews from the mountain, but it just became so synonymous with the lifestyle behind Mountain Dew that I wanted to make the name of the company something that could feel the same based on the vision that I had and wanted to create with my brother Casey. And so I came up with Mountain Ops, MTN OPS. And it could mean mountain operations, how you operate on a mountain, could mean mountain outdoor performance supplements, right? Acronymed, like it just, but at the end of the day, I wanted it to be broad. I wanted it to become defined by what we would define it by within our community as we defined the business and the brand, growing it. And so we came up with the name, built the brand, built a strategy. The strategy was all based on the playbook that Red Bull had written. I wanted to build in the outdoor space the Red Bull of this industry that nobody had done. And so coming in 2014, we launched the company in July of 2014. And from that day on, it was absolute madness in all the most beautiful ways. We, within the first 12 months of business, took 80% of the market share from Wilderness Athlete overnight, and they didn't see it coming. And from that day forward, we controlled 90% of the market for the next 10 years. And there's so many stories inside there, so I won't get into all the
Yeah.
stories. That's like for
Yeah.
another podcast in terms of the success that we had. But we became the category king and leader, and we started to redefine the category for outdoor performance nutrition for outdoor enthusiasts and outdoor athletes. And we are, I am so proud of what we built and the community we built, the brand we built, the vision that we had, and the team that we developed at Mountain Ops that executed that dream, that vision into a real tangible experience that consumers fell deeply in love with, and a brand that people still to this day love to wear, promote, share, and consume.
Mm-hmm.
And so fast forward from 2014 to 2019, right before COVID, right? We bring on a strategic partner who was the president of Goal Zero, was actually and had just stepped down as the president of a successful tech company called Owlet, and he was friends with my business partner, and they brought him in. His name was Joe Atkin, and Joe came in as a consultant to be a CRO and chief revenue officer to help us with our revenues and like look at our entire business, based on what he had done with Goal Zero, Owlet, and so on and so forth. So he joined our board, becomes an advisor, and he looks at us and he's like, "You guys, do you realize what you have?" And we're like, me and my brother are just like, "Yeah, we have this really fun company called Mountain Ops. Like, we're growing and we're just having fun. Like, I don't know what we have." And he's like, "I'm looking at your financials. Your customer acquisition costs are 30 cents. How are you acquiring a customer at 30 cents?" We're like, "Oh, we don't run any ads. We haven't run ads. We haven't paid Meta $1 for anything over this entire time. We've done everything based on our playbook that we wrote at our marketing company, relationships, partnerships, ambassadors, and just growing this organically
Mm-hmm.
and in guerrilla marketing, And he's like, "Okay, your EBITDA, after all expenses paid, everything bottom line, like we get to, you guys have a 75% EBITDA?"
Yeah,
Like,
that's the insane thing.
he's like, "You guys," and he's like, "You have all these millions of dollars just sitting in a bank account." We're like, "We just want to make sure that we have money in case like a rainy day comes." Like, we do. You got to understand, Chris, at this time, right? This is what is this, year 6, 7 of Mountain Ops, and I'm still taking a $75,000 salary. We had just all agreed as partners to raise our salary to $150,000. It was the first time in my life I made a 6-figure salary, and I was stoked. And we've got millions of dollars sitting in the bank for a rainy day, a business that's got just rich margin because we're literally acquiring customers through crusaders, customer-driven sales. And he's like, "Have you guys thought about selling your business?" And we're like, "No." Like, my dad and his brother, they built their fastener company for 32 years. My dad had just at that point sold his business with his brother. And he's like, "They just sold, but like, me and my brother think we'll own this for a long time." And he's like, "I mean, you guys can own it for as long as you want, but why don't you put it on the market and see what the market thinks of your business?" So this was in late 2019. We put the business out on the market, and it was insane. By January of 2020, this is right before COVID starts to get going, we've got I remember that we had, between private equity and venture capital, we had like over 200 interested in like buying our business. They're just like, "Whoa, okay, we're looking at this data room, we're looking at your business. You're how old? You're doing how much revenue?" They're like, "This is insane. Like, this is a unicorn," right? Because they were
Yeah.
also looking at and the other thing that was interesting about us too was not only was our customer acquisition cost super low, but our LTVs were incredibly high and way above par in terms of the industry, right, in nutrition, because
Yeah.
we had the lifetime value of our customer was at that time 4.5 years. And so we also were we had the market, like in terms of longevity, like keeping a customer, like lifetime value of a customer in a brand in supplements. Like, if you can keep a customer for 12 months, good job, because that's the life cycle. Because there's so many out there, it's so saturated. Everybody's trying new products. It's hard to keep people loyal. Our core consumer was deeply loyal, and that's credit to the outdoor community, because the outdoor community is one of the most loyal communities on earth. Period. Fact.
Yeah.
And so, fast forward to March of 2020, COVID rolls out on my birthday, March 30th. the market falls out. When both you and I should have bought deeply into the market, right? When everything started to fall, it was on my birthday. So I'll never forget it. I wake up on my birthday and everybody's like, the market's falling out, COVID, everybody's scared. What's going to happen? Well, we go from about over 200 private equity and venture capital that are doing due diligence. We're getting some
Mm-hmm.
LOIs and some interest to like that gets cut in half. And they're like, yo, we don't know what's happening right now, what we're going to do. So by April, we're down to like 50. We're talking to 50 companies. By literally May, and by the way, every month, Mountain Ops is doubling and tripling its sales. And this is credit to my brother's foresight because we made a huge bullish purchase of inventory in 2019 against our bullish plan that we stretched ourselves on what we thought we could do. So when we had fully stocked inventory that could last us, what we had bought was about 2 years worth of inventory that we thought, hey, if we sell this in 1 year, look how much revenue we make. And if not, we've got 2 years of inventory. We're fine on like our plan, like our conservative plan. That landed in March of 2020 when the rest of the market, as we all knew what happened next, supply chain issues, couldn't get raws and materials or goods, and everybody got just upended. We were fully stocked so we could fully deliver in an industry that was not shut down, in a space that was growing and where everybody wanted to get to because they were tired of being, confined to their homes. So what eventually then happened in 2020 was we sold a majority stake of Mountain Ops at the height of 2020 to a partner called Norwest Venture Partners, who is they are the private equity arm of Wells Fargo's venture interest. So they control about, I think it's like over $12 billion, right, in terms of how they want to allocate that for Wells Fargo in venture specifically. So what was really, cool for us and an experience that, was amazing was like we had a very prominent, successful private equity firm buy an outdoor brand that they were mainly buying tech and direct-to-consumer brands that were like in mainstream. This was the first time they had taken a flyer on an outdoor company. But again, our company was very attractive, very successful. And so they ended up purchasing a majority stake. So that was, as an entrepreneur, my second time experiencing an exit because I had sold my marketing company when we went into Mountain Ops. But now having sold a brand that we built from scratch and built from zero to hero in 6 years, and then we sold the majority stake. So that kind of brings us to the point of like, where so much happened in all those years, like I had said, but too much to get into detail on this guy.
Dude, there's a couple of things I want to tap into, but like our stories are so like in parallel. So like I wasn't 8, I was 11 when I started trading cards, but they were Pokemon cards because I was in grade 6 at school. Dude, that was the biggest thing, and I worked out that if I teamed up with kind of the nerdy kids in the grade whose parents were buying them all the cards, and then I would act as the broker and dealer. And so I would take those and I would take a clip on it and like basically sell them on their behalf because they were like too nervous to talk to the other kids. And so I was out there wheeling and dealing, paid for my cafeteria for the whole year. Then fast forward, finish high school, go to college, did a degree in business management. And I was like sitting there, listening to a class on entrepreneurship by a dude who's never run a business, but has written, 25 textbooks. I'm like, this isn't real. I'm like, I'm not actually learning anything here. And so that's when I was like, I was skateboarding a lot at the time, writing for a local brand. And I'm like, I'm just going to start my own skateboard company. And so I did that and then got into the media and advertising industry, and really started looking at tech. And so understanding how to build brands and scale businesses was kind of what I gravitated towards, my passion. Started a tech company, grew that, moved to America in 2018. And then in 2020, literally the same week we went into lockdowns, I was sitting in New Jersey. We had an office in Manhattan, in Soho. The week we went into lockdowns, I started negotiating my exit out of the company, and the world was going to crap, and it was kind of an interesting time because we had these slow rollout plans. So it was a media tech platform. We sort of worked with the biggest advertising agencies on the planet, and it was slow enterprise software kind of ramp on onboarding customers So we had plans that over the next 2 years we're going to onboard 1,500, one division of an agency, about 1,500 people, and go from there. And then as soon as COVID hit, we get the IT guys on the phone. They're like, "Hey, how do we onboard 10,000 people in the next 3 weeks?" and
Oh my
so
gosh.
it was chaos. But yeah, same thing. Kind of went through the exercise. So I kind of stories of kind of like in parallel of
And
gone
like
in
I said,
similar
it's like when
directions.
we met in Salt Lake and we were talking,
Yeah.
it was wild. Now here's a question for you, Chris. Do you remember where you were when you opened up a pack and got your first Charizard? Do you remember?
Yes, dude. I
Dude,
know exactly where I was.
dude, isn't that wild? Okay, so I
Yes,
remember where I was, sixth grade,
I've
like
never thought
you.
about that. It was yeah.
I was at this mall called the Cottonwood Mall
Uh
with my
huh.
buddy David in sixth grade. David was one of my best friends, and we went down and we bought 3 packs of those first jet packs. And I
Yep.
remember it was in a Bulbasaur pack that I flipped it over and I opened it up, and I remember opening up that pack and there was Charizard on top, and we started freaking out, dude. And um, I had the complete set. This is where when we talk about investing businesses, you and I both coming from cards, like, and how much the card market has exploded, right?
Yeah.
And um, I, I, I sold my entire complete first edition Pokemon set on eBay for like $200, and I was stoked. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just made bank." Now that complete set is worth like $2 million if you have it like graded and it's decent, like between a 6 and a 10. So yeah, man, like you saying like that you were into Pokemon cards, like our paths are so aligned in how we both kind of found ourselves within our journeys and took our journeys with intention on what we wanted to do, which you and I both love doing the same
Yeah.
thing, which is building brands, building communities, scaling businesses, and taking. And I think that's what's cool about where you and I have now converged our lives into even now into very similar realms of
Yeah.
we both have been on the side of entrepreneurship, business building, sacrifice, struggle, zero to hero, right? And the journey that takes that not so many get to. I would say a very small percentage, a large percentage can take it and have taken it, but a very small percentage gets to the end, like you and I both, where we actually were fortunate enough to exit, have some
Yeah.
success. And then both of us, as we were sitting down in Salt Lake, what I loved about our conversation is, and why Sean even like wanted us to talk was he's like you and Chris got to know each other because your guys' stories, mindset, mentality are very, very similar. And when you shared with me like what you guys were doing, I was like, dude, this is so cool. You're taking so many different pieces and facets of what makes and can make a full stack business successful, and you're pairing that in a way with tech overlaid on CPG, overlaid on direct to consumer, overlaid with retail, support to build out a new hybrid way of investing in and building businesses, right?
Exactly
And
right.
so I thought that was something that was so cool that you guys were doing, because that's very similar to what we're doing
Hmm.
in a different, very similar way, just with like, both of us have for everybody that's listening to this podcast, I think you've shared this on your personal page, and you've probably shared this on your podcast before, but the name of your company, what was the meaning behind that again? Because it had
So
such
that
meaning to you.
Yes, correct. So the name Killara is an Aboriginal word. Um, and if you can't tell from the accent, I'm not from around the US. I tell people in Texas that I'm from really, really South Texas. But so the word Kalaric is an Aboriginal word meaning permanent or always there. But what's more significant about it is it's actually the town of Killara, just outside of Sydney in Australia, is where my grandfather was born and grew up. And he had such a meaningful impact on my life, my family's life. He was, the youngest person to ever join the Australian Navy during World War II. It's just he lived an incredible life, and built an incredible legacy within our family. And so the name was significant. I wanted to do something that was in his honor, and yeah, and the .com was available as well.
See, and And again, it goes back to like when we talk about meaning, like I think
Yeah.
for you guys that are listening, like, if you're thinking about starting a business, if you're thinking about, you've got an idea, a lot of people have great ideas, can create and come up with an idea. It doesn't take a lot of thought
Mm.
work to just have an idea. You just got to think about something and maybe stew on it for a little bit. But it's taking an idea and then building everything that you know so well how to do around it, right? In terms of building a brand, building a name, because life is all about namesake, right? Some of
Yeah.
the greatest names. In fact, I was so inspired. I was in Italy this last 2 months ago with my wife, and I had only been to France a year prior. I am still needing to get to your neck of the woods, which my dad lived there for a few years, so I have a deep love for Australia, fish and chips.
Yes.
Vegemite, I haven't been able to get on the Vegemite train yet,
All right, but
right?
that's because you need to do it correctly. We'll
But
come back
I
to
put it
that.
on I put it on toast, right? And
Yeah,
I
we got
put
to
it
do
on
it real
different
thin.
things.
So
And I
Americans
think
think
I
like it's
think
peanut butter and they just slap it on, ruins
that's
everything.
my
It'll
problem. That's my
you need
problem. I put it on like Nutella. I put it on like Nutella.
yeah,
I
no,
throw
that
I smother
no
that
that
thing, and I shouldn't
that'll
do that.
there's a cardiac arrest waiting to happen. So look, you need to go butter very, very thin, like super thin coating, and it'll change your
And
world.
it's money. And then the
Yeah.
Tim Tam Slam. I love the Tim Tam Slam. Like
Yeah.
there's so many beautiful things that have come from Australia. I love
Yes.
Australia. And so that's I want to get there, and I'm going to go there like with you. You and I are going to Australia together. But
100%.
when I was in Italy, and I talk about this namesake or this brand, because like you, me, Chris, your name, Jordan, my name, like we are brands, right? Our last
Mm.
names are brands. We have our own personal brands, names, image, likenesses that we can build for ourselves if we want, as well as building meaningful businesses with products and meaningful ways in which we can serve others with those brands and businesses. And I was thinking about it, and I'm going to ask you this question, and just know when I ask you, probably 99.9% people are going to answer it the same way that you're going to answer it. But do you know Michelangelo's last name?
Is it Angelo? No.
No, no.
No, I don't.
One of the most famous sculptors and artists in human history, right? I'm sitting in the Sistine Chapel. I'm looking up at his work, right? I'm in Florence. I'm looking at the David, and you're experiencing all this beauty, and it's about a man that one name is
Hmm.
synonymous with his work because of what he did during his time to change the world during the Renaissance era.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so impactful to me because I'm such a brand guy to think
Yeah.
about a gentleman who, if I asked the world, which I've asked a lot of people this, and everyone's like, dude, I couldn't tell you his last name, even though I might have learned it in school. I just know him as Michelangelo.
Hmm.
That's it. And he has last name. I can't even tell you what his last name is now. And I'm asking you the question because he's so iconic.
Buono Narotti Simoni.
See, I couldn't tell you that, right? Most people
Yeah,
probably don't
dude, I
want
can't
to
even
want to.
pronounce it.
That's a jumble. But
Yeah.
but if we were to go to anyone around the world and say, "Do you know Michelangelo?" They're like, "Duh, the
Yeah.
David, the Sistine Chapel." Like, and so I think in life, what's really cool about businesses and about brands and even ourselves is our life's work is something just like Michelangelo's that can become synonymous with your name, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
really proud of the Harbertson name, and I think about my last name differently because my first name competes with a guy who already owns it, right? Everybody
Yeah.
knows Jordan, Michael
Yeah.
Jordan, he and the Jordan brand. So I'm not going to go compete against that. But the Harbertson, the son of Harbert, right? That came out of Welsh. That's meaningful to me. It's my brand. It's my name, and I want to do right by it in terms of that.
Yeah.
And so I think what's cool about what my brother and I are working on now that's very similar to like what you're working on. So this is what I love because of the cross pollination and the collaboration. Because you've already even sent me some deals opportunities, and I've sent you some, and we've kind of talked
Mm.
about like, hey, maybe this isn't for us, or maybe this is for you. But um, a big part of my life was I love pirates.
Yeah.
I adore pirate lore. I'm fascinated by it. And ever since I was a kid, literally from age 2 to 6, I dressed up as a pirate every year for Halloween. I watched Treasure Island. We went to Disneyland, and my favorite ride is Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I was so enamored with piracy, as my brother was too, that when we got back together after Mountain Ops, after we had sold majority stake of Mountain Ops, we still own the company now. Norwest is positioning it and growing it, and they just put in a new CEO, Keith. Keith is actually from Onnit, the nutrition company
Yep.
Onnit. He was their CMO, and then worked up into their president through their acquisition, and now he's actually running my company, Mountain Ops, which is interesting to have happen, where like your brand that you founded, you built, and you grew
Mm-hmm.
is now being run by somebody else other than you. It's kind of a trip
Yep.
in a lot of ways, but um, Casey and I got together after we both stepped out of Mountain Ops, and we started ideating. And I had spent time, as I told you, in private equity, got into venture capital, started investing, had a responsibility and duty to all this money that I had made in my exit, and learning how to be a good, responsible, fiscal individual with how I would invest it or how I would get it to go to work for me, which is the beauty of money. When you have more of it, you can put it to work as long as you do it the right ways, and it will make more money and it will give you more time. That correlation is
Yep.
paralleled and is important to understand. And so, like I had said earlier in the podcast, like, I did not care for money. So having a lot of zeros in your bank account was a different thing for me. But honestly, I still remember the day I signed on the dotted line, sold the company, and the money was wired to my account. I was actually sad. It
Yep.
wasn't like a happy day for me, because I was like, I didn't necessarily, to be completely transparent with you, I wasn't ready to sell Mountain Ops. I wasn't ready to sell it. But when you're in a partnership and the majority rule is like, we want to do this, then you kind of like, hey, okay, then if this is what everybody wants, let's do what's best for the business. Let's do what's best for the partnership. But I remember that happening, and then I just went right to work, like immersing myself in finances, stock market, business, private equity, venture capital, like deal flow, deal structure, and all this stuff that I had not learned. I had learned how to build a brand, build a business to success. Investing in businesses or building meaningful terms, deals, and structures around those, I had never done before. This is something I didn't learn. And
Yep.
like I said, I've never gone to college. I went to YouTube University, like most people. And so I just dived right in and started learning and getting my feet wet. And I started building funds of funds, and we invested in gas and oil and some real estate, and we did some venture investing. And I learned very quickly how disenfranchised I was being a fund manager in terms of
Yep.
managing the expectations of other
Mm-hmm.
investors that were super successful. That I was like, I love building brands, I love building
Mm-hmm.
communities, I love building businesses. I don't like managing wealthy people. So I immediately went to my brother and said, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I've got my management team that's managing the funds of funds and all of the things that we've got going on. I'm stepping back. I want to build something new and cool. I've got a lot of ideas. So we started ideating. We landed on this concept, like I said, that's very, very similar to what you're doing, that we call VXC. What I had learned or had experienced was I felt like there was such a lack of experience in the space, right? Guys like you and me that have been through our entrepreneurial journeys, building businesses to success, and understanding from basement to high rise what that experience looks like and feels like, and all the things and learnings and failures in between the start and the end. Like, most guys get fatigued, and there's a huge deficit in VC because there's not a lack of capital, right? You and I both
Mm.
know there's not a lack of wealthy individuals that want to invest in new business, put their money to work. In terms of the individuals that have the stewardship over that capital and the experience that they have building business
Yeah.
and building brands, very low. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what I think is so unique about you and I, and what we're doing is we're two individuals that are building teams and have some of our teams back together again from who helped us build our prior businesses, and new team members that we're working with and new teams that we're building out, like you said earlier, that is really helping us to come into an early stage space or a slightly validated business success of, like, pre-post $1 million, right, in revenue,
Yep.
and really come in and say, I think we can help you guys. I think we can scale you. I
Yep.
think we can accelerate. I think we can help you guys ideate. And I think we can help mitigate risk in your businesses. And so the VXC concept, which stands for Venture Experience Capital, is something I came up with that I wanted to say, hey, we're not a VC company, we're a VXC company because we're different. And here's how we're different. And it's a lot of the ways that Killara is different as well, which is that both of us have now built these teams and these assets that help to facilitate the early stage or mid-sized business needs of a business that's looking to scale or looking to grow, right? And I think what's cool about what you guys are doing, you've shared some of the things you're doing recently, especially that fishing company you guys purchased, where the founder died. So with his, you lose the visionary, you lose the founder, you lose the heart of the business, and the business just struggled. Now you guys are coming in to breathe life back into that business, and maybe even resurrect some of the founder's vision. That's now, I mean, even a founder like Steve Jobs, right? Yeah. His vision, he is still active at Apple, right? That's a real thing. And so I thought that was a cool story that you shared on your page that I listened to, that I was like, that is so cool what they're doing, because that happens a lot in business. And so your guys' experience, your team's coming in to facilitate, build, scale, and revive that brand and revive that business into more prominent, a more prominent position like it was before the founder died and it lost its way, and the family's like, we don't know what to do with this thing that we kind of inherited per se.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that one is when we look at kind of across, it's actually part of a broader strategy across what is a new division called the Killara Fishing Group. And we're actually rolling a whole bunch of fishing brands. We're looking at subscription services. We're looking at content plays, event companies in and around the fishing industry, and trying to build not just kind of products and brands, but community around that. But yeah, like you said, 27-year-old brand. It used to be the most innovative company in the freshwater fishing space, and had a strong reputation for that. Yeah, then they stopped innovating. It had some cash flow issues. The founder passed away. New owners came in, and like proper business guys came in. So, the two owners are the CEO of United Healthcare and a guy who runs a $4 billion hedge fund. So they came and bought the business, but they didn't know marketing. And then they realized that, we've just bought ourselves a job, and so we took a minority stake in that business. And we're about to announce very, very shortly, hopefully this week, that we've acquired the whole company.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah, it's super exciting because we know that we can. It's gone through this like huge rise down to fall effectively to ground zero, not from a revenue or profitability perspective, but from a kind of a market positioning and reputation, and kind of it just kind of lost its way. And
its relevancy has probably diminished significantly.
Yeah, and so it's a rebirth of that, and getting them back to a place of being the innovators in the space, and kind of being the head, not the tail. And so it's just one that we're super excited about. We've got huge plans for distribution, events, product strategy. So we're acquiring a fishing rod company at the moment, which is going to roll in and now become the Lake Fork Rod Company, like a suite of products. We've got different tiers. We're working with pro fishermen to design signature series products. We've got so many cool things that are going on, and then overlaying with the content and then the influencer programs around that. It's going to be a big brand.
And that's that. I think what's cool about that, and you and I have talked about this together in terms of like the landscape and what's changed, right? I think what's fascinating, we talk about the golden age of D2C that kind of has honestly come and crescendoed in terms of retail went through a really hard last 10 years, last decade, because of the emergence of D2C and the consumer becoming educated on being able to buy directly from brands. But now D2C after 2020 has taken a huge hit. We've got a lot of businesses, brands in distress, or they're struggling to find their way because they were so reliant on advertising alone and doing paid and earn to win their business and customers that they didn't have any other plays to run in their brand or business and overlay that on top of their company to create more growth, that they all started to get stale. Some of them started to go in decline, some plateaued. And now we're coming out of that. And what's interesting to me that I read an article the other day that talked about this was how retail right now has obviously completely transformed itself because of the necessity out of what was born from D2C. And now this emerging market that's now coming together at this point, which is where I fought tooth and nail against retail for the last 15 years, to be completely honest with you. Like, I never wanted to go in retail. I never wanted to work retail. I didn't like retail. And we only at Mountain Ops, we never went into retail. We were when I talk about the success of that EBITDA, the revenue, all that, we were 90% D2C and 10% retail. And our 10% was healthy, but we kept it at 10 because we wanted to control our destiny. And sometimes retailers have a hard time when you're, you and I both know, like when you're doing things different than they do, or you're giving discounts or value add and they can't offer the same, and they feel like, hey, you're stealing business from me and blah, 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 and we're not partners, whatever. What's changed in the landscape in the last 3 years is major retailers like Walmart, Target, REI, even Bass Pro Shops, like these guys are starting to make moves to recognize that they're building out tech, system, programs, processes, procedures that support a more direct buy opportunity from their brands rather than just brick and mortar. And so it's changing the way that even direct-to-consumer brands need to think about how they're playing in the space and competing against retail if they have a competitive mindset that way, and learning how to morph more in line with building stronger retail partnerships and aligning on strategy with direct-to-consumer and retail and how those blend beautifully. And that's a lot of what I'm trying to solve right now at Black Flag. And Black Flag was born, as I said earlier, out of piracy. Casey and I love pirates. And so Casey gets credit this time with coming up with the name, because on his license plate, on his Cadillac Escalade, that he had, a black Escalade with this black Utah license plate, it said BLK FLG. And the name of my brother's investment company was called Black Flag Capital. Like Casey loves pirates. And so he's like, dude, I got the name of the company. We love to do things in 6 letters and acronyms. We did Mountain Ops, MTN OPS. So we started Black Flag, and I'm just going to grab this real quick to show anybody who's watching the podcast so you can see our brand. So this is the brand that I built, the icon that I built for it. And the way that I came up with this was twofold. One, I've developed, at this point in my career, I feel like I want to say hundreds of brands. It might be excessive, but I feel like 100 brands. Like I've done a lot of graphic design, a lot of brand development, brand identity work. And this is my most proudest icon I've ever designed or ever developed. And the reason for that is because Black Flag represents and takes from history and from pirate lore and from the mystique that is literally all around it, all the stories and all the things that we know. A black flag in pirate time or in maritime represented an intention that you had to engage with someone at sea, right? And that intention was, I'm either going to fire one across your bow and give you fair warning, or I'm going to shoot one into your hull. And I'm going to go and I'm going to come side by side, and we're going to let our cannons rip, and we're going to see who wins. And if I win, I'm coming aboard and I'm taking my fair share of what I want, right? I'm going to commandeer what I want. And so just like in building brands and in building business, every business brand or owner needs to fly a black flag on their brand. They need to be intentional about taking from the market that which they want, because the market will give you nothing. That's the reality. The market will give you nothing. You have to take from it what you can based on what you can create with intention that will be meaningful to someone that in that market, they will want what you offer them and the value that you bring to the market. That's what the market values most, is value. And if you don't bring something of value, the market will spit you out and kick you out. And so in this, what's cool is we wanted to take from what was the, history. Everybody knows skull crossbones and skull, like cutlass swords. That's iconic with the Jolly Roger and a lot of the maritime design that was in the 17th century during the golden era of piracy in Nassau and out of Nassau with great pirates like Blackbeard. Everybody cinematically has known because of Disney and other great movies and shows. But I wanted to do bolts, lightning bolts, because the way that we operate, the way we build businesses, brands, and individuals is with speed. It's disruptive. We love to bring light. We love to be loud. We love to be recognized, noticed, because that's what you want as a brand. And so there's so much intention behind that symbol that also synonymously looks very like the old pirate flags, but now is a modern pirate's take on piracy in this era and age. And then the skull does not have a jaw. And I removed the jaw intentionally because we don't speak what we do, we just do it. We're men of action. And so actions always speak louder than words. That was incredibly intentional. And then obviously what we love about the skull and the eyes and the foresight and the vision that one can have and what hosts the creative process, which is in the brain and in your skull. So there's a lot of intention and meaning behind this logo and the name of the company. But the idea is very similar to like what you and I have talked about, what we're both trying to do for the outdoor community and space is help find meaningful businesses, brands that need aid and help to grow and scale and continue to give and bring value to a consumer base that you and I both love, which is the outdoor enthusiast.
Yeah. So coming back to the brand, so one of the things, I mean, when we first started talking about Black Flag, the thing that was really super interesting, fascinating for me, was you talking about the culture the culture and the story behind the lore of the Black Flag, and how you were. This is before you had even really released a product, but how you were talking about this is the culture this is what we're going to stand for as a brand. You had a very clear picture of what that would look like well before a product was ever released and created. And then I thought, as I've kind of followed the journey of what you guys have done, it has been an absolute masterclass of how to build hype around the beginnings of a brand. And you see that from the stuff you've done in terms of photo shoots with motocross through to the archery competition, the prize giveaways, the even just the behind the scenes footage of you guys in your head office kind of doing your thing, helps to kind of build anticipation of what's coming. But then the really cool thing that was just an absolute winner was the influencer packs that you released. You want to talk about that? Because that was just very, very well done.
Yeah, we thought deeply about, because the interesting thing with Black Flag was, as a VXC company, the idea behind the VXC was, in most, you and I both know, in most VCs, they just kind of are the fun. They buy the brands, they build the brands, they sell the brands, and like they get stoke and cloud on LinkedIn for like what the good job that they did. But like being a brand guy, I wanted to build a fund that's a brand that then also, if I'm investing in what we call these ships that are going to be in our fleet and fly their own flags of black with their own logos and brands, that we can help their captains and crew grow those ships to navigate the seas successfully, and then eventually find ports for them that they can find, somebody else can take that over eventually down the road. That was the thing that I said, okay, if we're going to be, again, men of action, men of not just word, but actually what we do, then I want to build a brand that not only helps build other brands, but also is a brand itself that people would want to wear, buy, and consume and be a part of, because that's what I've done in my career. And so I just want to be who I am and not just say what I do, but do it as well. And so going to your point on like launching the company and some of the creative behind that was like, let's be so intentional about what we're doing. Let's embrace this pirate mantra and mentality of enriching the crew, of like helping people find treasure in their life, like flipping the script also on the word revenge. So our very first product, that under the Black Flag brand, outside of shirts and hats and merch that people love to wear and represent, we decided that one of the most successful products that we developed, that Casey and I developed at Mountain Ops, was our Ignite product. We developed that 7 years ago. And it was what actually changed the landscape of supplements in a lot of ways. We're really proud to say that that time we got a lot of criticism for selling a product for $50. Okay. We also added 15 additional servings that nobody else was doing. So we did a 45 serving bottle for $50. And it was interesting because the market at that time was like $20, $20 to $25, and the high was 30. And all of a sudden, after we launched Ignite, this is in like 2004, or no, it was 2017. All of a sudden we have now, like, the market's now come up, right? And now it's not a joke to sell a supplement for $50. In fact, now you got supplements selling for 80 and beyond. That all to say, we wanted to recreate a total new experience. And we wanted to take some of our learnings, just like we do from taking, any experience you have in your life. And so we formulated and created. And we actually partnered with one of the masterminds at Bucked Up, that had been super successful at building all of their formulas. And their master formulator, Jose, came and worked with Casey and I and our team, Matt, Jake, and Matt, to develop and what is now Revenge. And Casey, my brother, I'll tell you this story because it parlays into the gift back and everything that we did. I remember when Casey came in the office one day and he literally looked at the entire team. Myself, Casey, our partners, Matt, Jake, and Rob were all sitting there, and a couple of the other team, Chris and Tyree, and we're sitting there, and he says, I've got the name of the product, and it's not up for a vote. This is what it's going to be. Like, he came in with such confidence, such like this is it. I've thought about it, and I figured out, because we were doing naming conventions for like 2 months and hadn't landed on anything we were proud of yet. And he walked in and he's like, what was one of the most famous ships in pirate lore? And we sat there for a minute and he's like, you guys remember Black Flag or Blackbeard's pirate ship? Queen Anne's Revenge? Well, pirates were always notorious for revenge, and why don't we call this Revenge? And we all sat there for a minute and it just had chills. It literally, we all had chills. We're like, Casey, this is brilliant. Like, and the beauty of what you're telling me, because then what he described next was, he said, but this is not the traditional revenge. This is not, oh, we're going to go get revenge on people and, like, you know, anything malicious or no ambiguity. This is getting revenge on the distractions in life that takes an individual away from their truest and most meaningful potential. What is it that can help a person venture farther, voyage more, and have more adventure in their life than consuming something that can motivate and inspire you to get revenge on laziness, get revenge on drowsiness, get revenge on the things in life that will take you away from being the best person you can be. I was like, Casey, we're literally about to flip the script on a word that hasn't been redefined in generations.
I love
and
that.
So Revenge is the first product that we've since launched, which is our energy, clarity, and focus. So it is a nutritional product that can be taken and consumed to start your day for any activity, indoors, outdoors. You can take it midday if you need another pickup. And it really is the equalizer to like standard RTDs or Monster, Red Bull, Mountain Dew, all these guys, which is what we did back at Mountain Ops with Ignite. And so we've now done it again in greater fashion, because we're using the most premium ingredients and raws and compounds and clinical studied ingredients known to man. So it's not a cheap product, but it does exactly what it says it does. So then came the next thing that you said, Chris, which was, okay, how do we launch this? How do we share this with our partners, our friends, our family, and this new community that we've started to build over the last 24 months? And so I kind of stewed on the idea of like, dude, we're pirates, so it's got to be treasure chest related. We're going to build a treasure chest. So we found a guy over in India that could build us a custom treasure chest. And we developed what are these old custom locks that are just like the old pirate locks and key. And then inside of it, we put the Revenge product. We put this really cool custom built clay mug skull, hollowed out skull, a rolled up parchment map. We put a coin in there, and like just every part of piracy that would like feel familiar and like be recognizable. And what we did is we then got, this was Brittany, she gets so much credit because she put this all together. I kind of shared the vision of this, and then she literally assembled it all with the team and like made it happen. But Brittany also got like old parchment paper, and then we got a wax sealer, and we waxed all these letters that we sent out to all of our partners, ambassadors. And so everyone all of a sudden overnight started getting these boxes that were locked.
Yeah.
And we told them like the key will come next. And then we sent the key out the next week. We did a whole rollout, and it was great because every day a new partner or an ambassador or a friend was sharing it, and everyone was enamored with it. And everybody was like, this is so cool. This is one of the best unboxings I've ever seen. And this is just like so well themed within, what you guys are doing. So it was a really fun way to introduce the product and kind of launch a Black Flag brand and consumable product to the market.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was very, very well done. So when you think about like Black Flag, so are you going to scale it as a supplements company, like as in a competitor to Mountain Ops?
No, like what's interesting is where Mountain Ops is like full stack, full scale supplement nutrition company. We right now are concerned about addressing only energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the need for stimulant or for using that nootropics blend paired with the cognitive and vasodilator that's in there that helps with blood flow and oxygen. Like if it's mental acuity, awareness, and performance, that's what we care about. We're not
Yeah.
interested in doing what we did before, where we're going to build out a full line of vitamins and bars and all that. Like we're going to stay in energy.
Mm-hmm.
We've discussed the potential rollout of probably 2 additional SKUs of a pre-workout and a hydration, and that being the system. And that's probably where we're going to stay. We're not,
Yeah.
we want to build a lifestyle brand, and these products will help to empower, inspire, and fuel that lifestyle that's an outdoor enthusiast. That, as we say, we're looking to, find people that span across the outdoor enthusiast that loves to do outdoor recreation and activities. And so, so like with Mountain Ops, we were hyper focused in hook and bullet, and that was the only place
Yeah.
we really lived. With Black Flag, we're more broad than that. In fact, one of
Sure.
this brand that I'm wearing, Cardiff, we just recently acquired. This literally just happened last week. We just finished acquiring Cardiff, which is a ski, snowboard, and splitboard brand, right?
Yeah.
And so strategically, the intention behind that is this is like we talked about earlier with the fishing brand that you just acquired. This is a business that was founded by Sam 6 years ago and disrupted the splitboarding space with his engineering, because he's an architect and he engineered a whole new system, edges and boards and patents. And so it was born out of splitboarding, and it's now emerged into snowboarding, and it's emerged now into skiing. And so this is our backyard. I live in Utah. Like I'm staring at White Cap Mountains right now, just out my window. In fact, like, see if I can show you guys. Like that's my view. Like
Amazing.
I'm salivating to go snowboarding right now. But I wanted to start to, as we look at investing in meaningful companies on the
Mm-hmm.
investment side, they're companies that will pair well with the lifestyle that Black Flag represents. So our ethos is always going to be based in outdoor enthusiast and outdoor rec companies and businesses that align effortlessly with our partnership internal lifestyle and the community lifestyle that we're trying to attract under the Black Flag. And so that's kind of like, I
Love
would
that.
say we don't want to be and have no intention to become a supplement company at all. We want to be an energy. We want to be synonymously considered and known like a Red Bull, a Mountain Dew, a
Yeah.
Monster, that we do in our runway have an RTD play. So like our
Cool.
plan is to really stay in that vein, in that lane, and drive that as narrow and as deep as we possibly can. And that was what I learned at Mountain Ups. I want to share real quick that
Yeah.
I didn't know as a young entrepreneur is, a customer wants product. I was like, let's just make it. And I remember in our first 3 years, we went from launching the company with 3 products: Enduro, Yeti, and Blaze Pills were the 3.
Yeah.
One was a pre-workout, one was a cardiovascular, and one was our energy focus and fat burner. Those are the 3 products we launched with. By year 2, we had added like 6 new products: proteins, vitamins, testosterone. Like it's like, because you can, right? The
Yeah.
resources are there. Let's do it. And so by the time we sold the company, we had like I remember it was like we had over like 40 SKUs. You can't talk about 40 SKUs in 365 days. I'm sorry. I guess
Yeah.
so. I learned a lesson that I'm like, we need to focus on what we can share the greatest message and spend the
Yeah.
most time on. And
Yeah.
going narrow and going deeper is our plan and play.
Yeah. And be the best in the world at that thing.
Yep. Be the
Yeah.
best at that. Instead of trying being the everything for everyone. And that's what I love too. Like, this,
Mm.
like brands aren't for everyone. Certain
Yeah.
brands are for certain people. And the idea that you can get everyone is a false belief, because that's not what building business is about. It's not about getting everyone. It's about getting who gets you. And it's about building, like you and I said earlier, a core vision and a mission behind what it is that you want to do, and then building a brand around that, pairing that with beautiful product that really serves a meaningful purpose and actually provides value that will give the consumer the experience that you are promoting, that you are promising. And that's what great brands and businesses do. That's where
Yeah.
success comes from. Because anybody can have an idea. We said this earlier. Anybody can have an
Mm-hmm.
idea. Anybody can create a product. Anybody can go to Alibaba and buy from China and print a label on it and ship it and sell it. Like people are doing that on Amazon all day and twice on Sunday. But
Yep.
building a real iconic brand. That is my vision. That is what I hope. I hope 10 years from now, the same way people look at the Mountain Ops icon, how iconic it is. When I say this, I believe this with all my heart. I truly believe that what we are building here is something so much greater than anything I've ever built in my life and ever built in my career. And I believe with every part of me that skull and crossbolt icon is going to become one of the most recognized brands in the outdoor community. And that is our mission. And the mission behind that is because what it stands for and what it will mean to people. So I'm excited about
that.
what's going on,
That.
what we're doing. It's
I
fun.
love that. Look, shifting gears, I want to, as you kind of move towards wrapping up, I want to get your take on where you see the kind of the future of the industry going.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been a tumultuous last kind of 12 months with D2C getting crushed, and we went off the back of the skyrocket of the industry during COVID. Then off the back of that, there was a lot of businesses that went bankrupt, a lot of businesses that have struggled from a cash flow perspective, and I think that'll start to really we're already starting to see it, but it'll start to really normalize. But I want to get your take on kind of where do you think the industry is going to head as we move into 2025?
It's interesting. So I think some of what I'm about to say is going to offend some people. And if it offends you, I'm not sorry, because this is what I feel like truthfully is needed, especially in a space that's so under attack all the time. Especially when I'm talking about hook and bullet. I'm talking about hunting, fishing. Fishing, not so much. Fish don't have faces, so people don't get mad about them being caught and butchered and fed. Like fish and sea life tend to avoid that, which is one of the brilliance of Yeti and how they avoided a lot of the backlash with their hunting side by focusing more on the fishing side and building there first and then kind of bringing hunting along the way. This is what I'm seeing. This is total opinion. I don't have any facts or sources to substantiate my claim other than my own gut feeling. This is what it is. I feel like the landscape has changed overall in many spaces and places within outdoor rec. And I think one of the biggest changes that I'm seeing is how many outdoor brands, especially in the hunting space, are plateauing right now. And the reason that I feel like that's happening is, one, we've just come through a decade of this total emergence that I felt like Mountain Ops was a big part of for hunting, of pushing people to ambassador partnership, people becoming famous on Instagram and TikTok and all these mediums and building their businesses and brands. And then all of a sudden these brands and businesses are now like algorithm based and you have to pay to play. And so now they're struggling. And then the content, right? You and I talk so much about content, how crucial it is to the way that people consume from the brand and how they become part of it and how they become loyal to it. It's all content related. What are you putting out? How much of it are you putting out? What's your cadence? What are the imagery and what are the videos and what are the messages that you're putting out that's capturing an audience and captivating them to you? And here's what's not very captivating right now to me: the hunting community. And this is why I say they're going to get offended. Okay, hunting podcasts are boring. They like we're talking about the same story with from a different point of view, shooting the animal at a different place, but like the journey, all this. I think what mainstream's done is they've shown us the way, and what outdoor is always doing is they're always behind, right? Yeah. Outdoor is always delayed in being where mainstream is, and that's just been historically where it's been. So now what's interesting is if we look and we fast forward to where we are today in outdoor, the outdoor community has now come forward on social media, ambassadorships. We had a little stint with Ranella on Netflix, and we had, Amazon was allowing. Now Amazon is not allowing hunting films on their platform, so now they're being suppressed, and there's all this suppression. And here's what I think is really interesting. I think what's interesting is people. And I think what's interesting about people is when they're authentic and when they're genuine. And when I think people are most authentic and most genuine is when they share everything that's meaningful to them in their life. And here's what I will take all the heat that this podcast or anybody who listens to it will bring me. And here I am, one of the icons in hunting in terms of a successful businessman who built a very successful brand in it. And I love and adore the outdoor hunting community. So don't what I say next has nothing to do with how much I love them. In fact, it's because I love them that I want them to be more successful. And it's why I'm saying the hard things, which is this: there is more to life than hunting. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you do in your life outside of hunting? Share that, show that, promote that. Because showing an animal deceased, or that your content from last year for 365 days until the next season starts, okay? The average human being in this space hunts 14 days a year. That's the hall pass they get from their wife. They're like 2 weeks, usually spanned in weekends, because they work a job on the weekdays, but they live 365 days for those 14 days. That's the reality. They are obsessed with everything for those 14 days. And then when they're gone, they're looking forward to the next 14. So here's my thing. What are you doing in the winter? Do you snowboard? Do you ski? Do you like snowshoe? Do you rock climb? Do you motocross? Like, what are your other hobbies and interests? Like, as an individual, as a consumer or a ambassador or promoter, I think where the industry is going to grow and where it's going to change is when the industry starts to embrace that there is more to life than hunting, and sharing that message with everyone and showing that more, and being a little bit like I would say where I am disenfranchised sometimes with mainstream on the far other side is some of these influencers that live such a lavish lifestyle that, they don't show the in-betweens. They just show all the good stuff. And so I think the authenticity is lacking and missing. We get that you love hunting, you love the outdoors, but now show me things that you do that are in the outdoors that are outside of that when you're not doing that. So like I said, I know that's a sensitive subject because it's such an echo chamber inside of hunting, and we're being attacked on all sides. And we talked, I was at the round table with Zinke during Trump's last administration. And I was invited at the Conservation Roundtable, where I sat around the table with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, the Sheep Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation, like all the major foundations on quote this side. Myself, Lindsay from Yeti, and Garrett from Sitka, the three of us all represented the major brands in the space and the consumer. And then we sat next to the foundations. On the other side of the table, we had 1% for the planet, Patagonia, the owner of Patagonia we had, and founder, we had PETA, like the other side, right? Here's what was cool. It totally opened my eyes. I would go to Washington, D.C., and I would sit at this round table quarterly, and we would have meaningful discussions around the wild places and spaces and the wildlife that lives within them, and where they connect with the modern world and the rural spaces and the city spaces and the urban spaces, and where there's impeachment and like where there's grazing and not. I mean, we're having discussions about everything that involves the earth and everyone who's in it, and how do we coexist and how do we live and how do our industries work together. And what was so cool is the founder and owner of Patagonia, huge hunter. He doesn't want anybody to know that, because all the Patagonia people would be like, what, you kill animals? That's insane. No, huge hunter. Dude, I went hunting with one of the founders of Google. Huge hunter. He don't want everybody to know that, but he's a big hunter. And so they're scared because this other side like just ostracizes, crucifies you. But when we came to that round table and I was getting into politics because I had a large base of voters and consumers that could change policy, I would sit down with senators across both aisles, Democrat and Republican. I sat down with BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. We sat down with all the different organizations, and we had discussions around how we could find a medium and a ground. And I still remember this. I share this story with intention because it's based on what we're talking about in terms of like what's changing or what needs to change. And I worked with, I remember Senator Mike Lee here in Utah and Senator Romney, both representing Utah at the time. Chaffetz was putting up a bill in Utah to change, like in Texas, what happened, which is change it from federal to state funded. Mm-hmm. And when they move it from federal to state, it becomes completely reliant on the state to fund managing the land, the wildlife, and the public land that we have. And what history has shown us from the East and the Midwest is when we make that transfer of land from federal to state, the state now has to sell land to make budget to run the state. And so we lose access to public lands. And so I became extremely versed in all this because I had to, because I got kind of thrown into it. And I remember I called Chaffetz up and I warned him. I said, I'm going to give you fair warning. I am a business owner in Utah. I am somebody who cares about public land access, and I understand what the other side wants. I understand what you're proposing because you think it's what's right, but what history has shown, because I'm a historian, is it doesn't work. We will have less than 10% public access in Utah within 50 years if you are in control, if the state is in control of the budget instead of federal. We need federal state to cross-pollinate and collaborate and work together, because actually they print the money and they fund things, and you need to manage how you do that. And then we don't need to sell off land to make budget. We need to work to keep what we have. So anyways, I gave him like a pirate. I gave him a shot across the bow. I raised the black in defense of conservation and wildlife and wild places. And we rallied all of the organizations and all the brands, and we won an incredible feat, because at that time, the outdoor retailer show that you and I met at was announced that they were leaving, because they're like, if Utah's going to do this, we're out. This goes against everything we stand and believe. And what I thought was interesting was I was able to sit across the table from Senator Mike Lee, Governor Herbert at the time, Romney, Chaffetz, and some of the House representatives, and we had a big discussion. And dude, we made concessions. We negotiated deals where we gave up wetlands over here on the west side of the corridor here in the Wasatch Front, and to maintain some of the public land access on the front of the Wasatch in the back. And I got a lot of heat for this. And they were like, we gave up land. And I was like, whoa. We maintained 95% access, and we negotiated and gave up 5%.
Yeah.
That 5% we gave up isn't even developable really. Like, and there's some encroachment, but I said, this is what I learned, is that both sides, we have to make concessions. And where I kind of diverge, but I come right back and converge in where this conversation started about the outdoor industry, is I'm like, the outdoor industry need to understand that the other side are not bad guys. They are not. I have worked with them. I am friends with them. I have relationships with them. They are good people. We tend to misunderstand each other, and the kind of content that we're putting out represents that. I think it's as outdoor enthusiasts, it's our duty and responsibility to be more intentional and thoughtful about the kind of content we're sharing that can speak greater to the ethics that we all stand for and the beliefs and values that we hold true as outdoors men and women, that will resonate and radiate with the other side in respect. Because there's a lot of respect on the other side. That's what I don't like that happens, is this, we think that we need to create an echo chamber and isolate ourselves. But again, like just talking about hunting all the time and nothing but it, that's inspiring and was inspiring for the last 10, but it's not as inspiring to me now. I want to know what's meaningful to someone. Like, what motivates you beyond just pursuing an animal in the wild? Like, what motivates you in life, your family, your children, your spirituality? Like, do you believe in spirituality? Are you a spiritual person? Like, do you have like faith in something? Do you have beliefs? Like, do you have values? Like, I want to hear, and because we only see that from people every 4 years when there's an election. Yeah. I want to see that all the time. I want to see people passionate about their country, passionate about their hobbies and their lifestyle, and sharing that more, because I feel like that kind of content will attract and build the industry and create new consumers in the industry in a space that I feel like is getting kind of shrinked right now. Yeah. So I know that's a lot, Chris. I know.
Yeah, it's all living in kind of this echo chamber of kind of its own little world. And I never realized how, until I really got into the outdoor industry as a whole, I never realized how political it was. And so when we started, Killara and everything that we're doing, someone spoke to me and it was like, how political do you want to be? And I'm like, well, look, like, I want to not isolate people. Obviously, we've all got views on everything, but you want to be respectful and kind of talk to them. And they're like, no, you need to understand how political this industry is. Like, it's unbelievable around the difference between conservation and preservation and land versus hunting and to what you said before, like no one considers fishing hunting. but like, you know, the same consumer that shops at a Bass Pro is different to an REI, and to a large extent. And so for me, it was always like, well, how do we find commonality across both sides of the table, understanding that, you know, there's over 35,000 companies in just the outdoor industry in the US alone. $860 billion of revenue is a highly, highly fragmented industry. And you've got competition at every part of every segment. You've got camping tents. There's like 50 companies that just do tents. You look at fishing. There's hundreds of brands. Firearms, accessories. There's thousands of companies that do that. And so it's like, where is the commonality? It's while we might not agree with each other, you know, politically, where are the commonalities that we can find across this industry? And it's something that I love about this industry, that I agree with you. I think that people aren't really talking enough about. And, you know, for us, like, we want to become one of the biggest voices in the industry about how to build and scale companies, to actually help invest in, you know, founders across this industry on how to actually help them scale their companies. And it's that whole kind of, you know, the tide rises all ships type approach. And yes, obviously, you know, where, you know, there's profit and everything will come from that. But for us, we see it as a much bigger play because it's such a phenomenal industry filled with phenomenal people. And
It's the
and so
it's the best industry.
yeah,
Like the
yeah,
outdoor community is the best industry. Like the best people are in it. Like I'm grateful. You are too.
mm,
You and I are so grateful because our success in business in this space came because of these people. Like
mm,
we had great ideas, we had great execution, we had great vision, we had great mission, but like it didn't mean anything if nobody bought into it, but they all do. And they do this with every brand out there that is intentional about giving back, not taking. That's the thing that I love about this industry. If you're a brand that's intention is only to come and take, but you have no intention of
yeah,
giving back, you will be found out.
yeah,
You will be found out and you will be removed from the community. And so what I like that you just said is the thing that I learned too in the process of trying to navigate how you bridge this gap or this void between these two spaces and these two communities. I mean, it's a mutual respect of that we both share the same land.
mm,
This land, you know, to be, you know, little corny, but this land is your land. This land is my land, right? Like the song says, like all lands across the world are ours as human beings to inhabit. That's what our purpose is here. It's also by inhabiting these lands, it's our duty to maintain them and respect them and care for them. And so I think when you and I are thinking deeply about like how do we as help these businesses, these brands, these founders, these captains and crews navigate
mm,
such treacherous waters ahead in terms of, you know, storms that you're going to face as a brand or a business if you don't stand for something, right?
yeah,
And like you said, it's a very political space and a very political ecosystem inside outdoor, but you have to stand for it.
mm,
And don't stand for it for the sake of just standing. Have a stance of understanding. Seek to understand the other side, and then seek to be understood, so that we can take these brands, these businesses. And I loved how you said it. You said at Killara, we're heavily investing into the space because you
mm,
guys have such a desire to invest in it and help it grow. That's what we all want. We want
mm,
this to grow.
yeah,
We want more people to be a part of it. So any idea of alienating or ostracizing or echo chamber needs to be disbanded, or these sub uh, categories or subsets within, you know, the industry needs to be disbanded to where a unification of what we all care about and being intentional, being authentic, and sharing how you feel. You know,
yeah,
because there's good players and there's bad players on both sides. Regardless of that, there are a lot of great brands and businesses, and I'm so stoked personally, like just hearing your story, the total parallels of our lives and journeys and growing up and where both you and I have come to, and like what you and I are both doing in our careers right now. Like we're both trying to serve
yeah,
this community that has served us both so well.
yeah,
That's why I say
exactly
don't get
right.
offended, guys. When I'm being honest, I'm just being honest. Like I spent 10 years building a business, and I hunted over 100 days a year. Like, nobody gets to do that. Like, I did that for 10 years, right? Like, I know
Wow.
what it's like to live that lifestyle. Now I'm on the other side. And as a father, I'm trying to think about how I can listen. I'm going to be honest. Like, my sons, here's where I failed. You want to talk about failure? We haven't talked about too many failures on this podcast. Here's a failure that I had as a father. I built a super successful company called Mountain Ops. It's very, a lot of people know it, love it, appreciate it, and are adore it. I about lost my wife. I about lost my kids. I gave everything to that company. I gave everything to that industry. I gave everything to the outdoors. And this is what's so sad. I hate when I say this, but it's the truth. I got to hunt with some of the coolest people on earth, celebrities, partners, owners and founders and CEOs of companies. In 10 years, I maybe hunted with my sons maybe 5 times.
Wow.
I didn't prioritize that. I justified for the business going out and hunting with all these important people. And now my sons, they're into basketball, they're into snowboarding, they're into motocross, they're into some of these other things. I'm like, do you guys want to go hunting? And my kids are like, I'm good. And that's on me. That's onus on me.
Yeah.
They're not stoked about that, but also I've recognized, like, hey, we'll still probably do that, but that's everything I did with Dad. Dad, we went hunting a lot with Dad, but now I do all these other things. So my perspective, because of post Mountain Ops Sell, what I've been doing in my career, and my view on the industry has changed. So that's where my opinion, my gut that I shared with everybody comes from. Make sure you're prioritizing your life in a meaningful way, that you put the right people in those slots ahead of everything else. Because if you do that, everything else will get taken care of. And be fearless and relentless in sharing who you are and being intentional about being authentic and genuine, and not trying to be something that you're not. Because those kind of people, time reveals all truth. And I've found in my life and career that the people who created this persona or tried to create this main character, if you will, if that's not who you really are, it's not, we can see that, we can feel that. So when people are sharing content, when brands are thinking about content creation or how they're going to connect with consumers and customers, be intentional, be authentic about it, be genuine, but be meaningful too, and be it to your core is what I'd say. And I think that's where the industry can grow. I think that's where we could change the trajectory of businesses, of the industry, of the community, is by embracing the other side. That's our side too, which is the outdoor recreational space that is beyond hunting, right? Skiing, snowboarding, snowmobiling, motocross, power sports, like all these other things that I guarantee people do because they have a truck and a trailer, that there's not always a buck or a bull, strapped to the back of that. There's vehicles that share that with people. Let them know what you do that's outside of hunting. And I think that'll help grow the community more and resonate with the other side. That's what I'd say.
I love that. Man, this has been an incredible conversation. For our audience perspective, where can they learn more information about Black Flag and, follow along your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys want to come check out Black Flag? It's blkflg.com, acronymed. We've got an app you can download on Google or Apple, the Black Flag app, so you can start to participate, become a crew member, join the crew, get deals and incentives with products that we're putting out, and deals and incentives from our invested brand partners and businesses that we're invested in. And so a lot of that information that many would want to seek or know or learn about Black Flag is on blackflag.com.
Amazing. And you guys are giving away an electric motocross bike at the moment.
Yes. We've got a good partner, Baku, and
love those guys.
One of our best friends, Corey Jacobson, who's like world champion elk caller of the world and one of the most successful elk hunters out there. He's an ambassador, partner, and friend. He was quintessential to us in the years in Mountain Ops, and he's now come aboard to support us on the Black Flag side. So we're doing that with Elk 101 and with Baku. But 50% off everything, dude. This is the only time in our company history I think we'll ever do this, but it's our first Black Friday. So we're like, hey, we're Black Flag. It's Black Friday. Let's raise the black and lower prices and let's do this thing. So we're just like, hey, come stock up and get what you want and get your revenge and some merchandise, and then come support some of our other brands and companies that are doing some great deals as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. Oh man, that was an incredible conversation. And the start of many, many things that I think we're going to do together. So appreciate your
Heck yeah.
time, man. And
Likewise.
yeah, we'll chat
Thank
to you
you,
soon.
Chris. G'day, mate.
See ya.